Hi everyone, I created this lesson here for those of you who are brand new to the cello, you don't know anything about the cello, and you want to get all the information you need really fast. Disclaimer, this is not how I normally teach, but I know there's a lot of people who want lots of information, they just want to find it and learn on their own. So this is for you, it's your first cello lesson, and I'm Carolyn Hagler. I've been playing the cello professionally probably 40 years, teaching for the last 40 years, playing the cello for the last 50 years, and I've set up hundreds of cellists over the years. I'm also the creator and director of Cello Discovery, which is the place to go if you're an adult wanting to learn how to play the cello. And I recommend you get a notebook and a piece of paper because this information is going to come to you fast today. All right, let's get going. All right, now starting from the very beginning, lots of people ask, do I rent a cello or do I buy a cello? If you're brand new to this, I highly recommend you rent a cello first for several reasons. One, because you don't really know if you're going to stick to this, and there's a lot of junk on the internet that you don't know what you're getting if you just buy a random instrument on the internet. But if you go to a reputable string shop, you're going to get a quality instrument that is not going to be frustrating to you as you first learn how to play. Nothing worse than getting a cello that just is not set up properly and cannot produce a good sound. It's going to frustrate you and you're probably going to quit. So rent an instrument versus purchasing one to start with. Okay, the next thing you want to know is what all do you need to get started playing? Well, obviously you need a cello and you need a bow. That's the thing that draws the sound out of the instrument. So you need a cello, you need a bow, you need some rosin. Rosin is basically it's like a sap that has been hardened and cured out so that you can use this to put on the hair of the bow so that it can grab the string and make a sound. So you do have to have some rosin. Most of the rental instruments do come with rosin. If not, there are tons of brands on the market. This is the Bernardel rosin. I've been using it for years. It's a great rosin, perfectly good. All right, the next thing you need is something to hold the end pin. There's nothing worse than a slipping end pin. So there's a couple things you can do. One of these is a strap. This is just basically a strap that goes over the leg of the chair, and then that spike goes into the little hole here. There's also something called the black hole. It's a very sticky piece of rubber that you can use to grab onto any slippery surface, and it really does stick, and you can clean it often and it will last forever. So that's a recommendation. And you need a good chair. You need to have a dining room height chair, like a modern dining room height chair that does not have any arms. Not a folding chair. They're typically too low. They typically push you back in the chair, not on a cushy chair or a bed. So a nice firm chair that you can sit on. And you'll also need a cleaning cloth because that rosin's going to get on your strings and it will build up on your strings. So you need to be able to clean that off of the strings and off the body of the instrument. And you want to wipe this fingerboard up here sometimes too. And you also want to know how to take care of your instrument. So remember, this is very fragile. It's made out of wood. When you lay the instrument down, you don't want to lay it obviously on its front, and you don't want to lay it down on its back unless you're putting it on a bed. You do want to lay it on its side, but every time that you lay it down, you want to make sure that you put this end pin back in. There's a screw that opens this up and brings it out. So you want to make sure that's in every time you walk away from the instrument because it's an easy thing to trip over and knock your cello over. If you lay it down its side, make sure you're laying it against a wall somewhere that is not easy to get bumped. You want to leave it away from a cold window or some cold area that's going to adjust the temperature of the instrument too much. All right, the parts of the instrument. When you learn how to play the cello, you have to know what the cellist, the teacher's talking about. So I'm going to quickly go over the parts of the instrument so you know what they're called. This top part is called a scroll. It looks like the old scroll that you would use to roll out some wonderful document. So there's the scroll. This is the peg box here. It's what holds the pegs. These are the pegs that go into the peg box here. This part here is called the nut right here. It's what the strings wrap over. That's the nut. This is the fingerboard. The ebony black part of wood is called the fingerboard. It's what your fingers will be pushing down against. And these, of course, are the strings. We refer to this simply as the front. This is the side, and this is the back of the cello. At the bottom, we have the end pin, and it has a lever that you can release to take this in or out according to what distance you need to be able to play properly. And right here at the bottom, we have something called a tail piece. In the tailpiece is something called fine tuners. That's what we use to get the cello really finely tuned. The pegs are what you're going to use to get the cello in tune. If it's really out of tune, the fine tuners are what you use to get the instrument really well in tune. So that the strings connect to the tailpiece and to the fine tuners, and they wrap up here and they go over something called the bridge. And this is the bridge right here. These are sound holes or F holes. That's what these are. Under one of the feet of the bridge, we have something called a sound post, and it's a little piece of wood that connects the top to the back of the instrument, and it's what helps the instrument resonate. It is not glued in there. If it does fall down, you have to get that replaced, not replaced, but you have to get it fitted again by a luthier. So that's underneath there, and if the bridge should ever fall down, probably that sound post is going to fall over too, because like I said, it's not glued in there. You might have seen this. You don't need this yet. It's basically a mute. It softens the sound of the instrument. And you're probably wondering what that black dot is, and that's something called a wolf tone eliminator. Don't need to worry about that yet. So that's the main parts of the cello. Now, the next thing you're probably going to want to know is how do you tune the instrument? So I would recommend that you don't tune it as you're first starting. You actually take it into a shop and allow them to tune it. If you live too far from a shop, you might want to see if you have a musician friend or someone that you know that can come help you tune this. If you try to tune these pegs on your own the very first time, inevitably you're going to over tighten them and break a string, and they're not cheap, so you don't want to break strings when you tighten it. That's the common thing people do, is over tighten the strings and they break the strings. So there are some things you can do to tune the instrument, but the best thing to do is to take it in, have somebody tune it at the shop, carefully bring it home, don't bump it, don't put it in a cold place, keep it in a very temperate location, and it should stay in tune at that point. Okay, next thing you need is a bow, and the bow is a very crucial part of playing the cello. You probably have one of these, and it's what we use to draw across the strings to make it produce a sound. So the parts of the bow, basically we just call this the stick. That's the wood part. We have what we call hair, and that is actually a Siberian or some type of a horse hair that comes from a very cold location. The part that you hold on to, which is the big black piece here, that is called the frog. So this whole area is called the frog right here. At the very end of the frog, you have something called a tightening screw, and that's what allows you to tighten and loosen the hair, which you'll do daily. You have to loosen this every day so that the hair doesn't hold its tension too long, and you'll tighten it every day. When you tighten the screw, it pushes away from the stick a little bit, and basically if you can put your pinky in there and just gently touches on both sides, that's what you want. The idea is that you can push down on the string and the stick does not touch the hair when you push down on the bow towards the string. Some of the less expensive bows, you do have to tighten them a little bit tighter, but be very careful not to over tighten. If you see equidistance between the hair and the stick all the way down, you've probably got it too tight. You'll notice that it's a little closer to the wood. The hair and the wood are closer together here than they are here, and then they are here. So be careful about how you tighten that. And then when you're finished, you're going to take the tension off of the hair. Next thing you need is to know how to rosin the bow. So you're going to rosin the hair on the bow, actually, and you'll take this out, and you try not to touch this. You don't ever really want to touch the hair on the bow, and you don't want to touch the rosin, because what you're doing is you're rubbing the hair over the rosin to get a little bit of that powder dust to go on to the hair. So you're just going to rub it up and down. You don't want to over rosin, and you probably don't need to rosin more than every couple days. And you'll put that rosin on there, and be very careful when you put the rosin away, because it is breakable. It shatters easily, so just be very careful with your rosin. Okay, seated playing position with the instruments, probably one of the most important things you can do. You want to sit more or less on the edge of your chair, the upper half of your chair, not back in the back of the chair. Sit towards the front of your chair. You want to be leaning just ever so slightly forward. You don't want to be leaning back. The idea is that you are leaning into your cello is not leaning into you. And so before you take the end pin out, what you want to do is just find those spots where it's going to make contact with your body. The back of the instrument is going to touch right at your sternum, so that's one point of contact. Inside of your right leg, your knee, inside of your left knee are the 3 points of contact. So it makes a triangle right here. You want to make sure that the neck of the cello, this right here is called the neck, is close to your neck. So we call it neck to neck. Once you've found those 3 spots where the cello is going to hit you, I would say start off by taking the end pin out, more or less about a foot, 12 inches, whatever, how many centimeters that is, and put it in front of you. Your feet are flat on the floor in front of you. You're leaning slightly forward. You're making sure that you have a contact between the sternum and the 2 sides of your knees, your legs, and it's neck to neck up here. You can be able to hug your cello. It's really close to you. One of the things that you'll see a lot of times is people have it much too high here, and that's going to be the wrong spot. That C peg right here should really be behind the back of your head. So if you feel that C peg hitting the underside of your skull, that's probably about the right spot. So you might have to adjust your end pin up or down to make it work. Be careful that you also don't get the cello too low. You really want to have it, you don't want to have it coming against the side of your head. This is too vertical, it's too high and it's too vertical. It needs to really be at this angle. So just continue to adjust that end pin until you feel like you've really got it. You've got the 2 sides of your knees, you've got it, your sternum it's touching, it's neck to neck over here, not completely touching, a little bit of space. It's not touching you on your shoulder right here, it's not leaning on your shoulder like this. The C peg is behind your head, and you are slightly leaning forward, and your feet are flat on the ground. So if all those things are in place, here's a checklist to remind yourself what you need to do, and just double check all that and get this in perfect position, because that's a real essential element to learning how to play properly. Now the strings, we have 4 strings. The strings are tuned in fifths, so they're 5 pitches apart from each other. The narrowest, the skinniest string is our A string. Right adjacent to that, slightly fatter string is the D string. Right next to that and slightly bigger is the G string, and the biggest, the widest string, and the lowest string is called the C string. So you can kind of remember it, all dogs get cats. A, D, G, C, that's the name of your strings, going from the highest to the lowest string. Now one of the first sounds that you're going to make is called pizzicato. It's another word, it's an Italian word for pluck. So the way you pluck your instrument is with your right hand, you're going to make a fist. You're going to extend out your thumb and your index finger. So it looks like this, kind of makes an L. Tuck those fingers down here. You're going to put your thumb about 2 or 3 inches above the right side, on your right side of the fingerboard from the bottom. You don't want to have your thumb here against the side of the fingerboard. You're going to put your thumb and park it there. That index finger is going to be plucking each of the strings. As you pluck each string, your elbow is going to come up and down so that you can reach those strings. So you want to practice plucking the A and the D, the G, and the C. Your index finger is right next to your thumb, so you don't reach over here or you don't reach up here. It's just a very natural, comfortable position. Okay, now with the left hand, one thing you have to know, if you've played the piano, you have a different fingering system than we do. This is simply called thumb. This is our first finger. This is 1, that's 2, that's 3, and that's 4. We don't use the 5-finger method. It's just 1, 2, 3, and 4. Those are your fingers. Now you're going to get your left hand in shape, you're going to make a letter C, or it's just like you're holding on to a soda, like you would be drinking a soda, and you make that shape with your hand. Your thumb, the very patty part of your thumb, is going to go underneath the neck, and those fingers, we're going to line them up on the D string, so they're nice and curved. You're going to hit right on the patty part of your fingers. You want to make sure you don't squeeze. All the weight comes from above and you sink it this way. So nice curved hand like this. Another thing you want to remember is that we have a straight line all the way from the base of these knuckles all the way to the elbow. So you want to be careful that you don't have a bend here or any bend this direction. And a lot of folks who go from playing the violin to the cello have a tendency to pronate far too much this way. So you want to move and supinate a little bit this direction. So they're a little bit more tall fingers than you would have as a violinist. So if you feel that your fingers are drooping back this way and you're playing too much on the side of your index finger, just rotate those fingers, rotate that arm so that you're over the strings like this. And you still have that nice tunnel, that nice C shape in your left hand. As you're on the A string, your elbow is at the lowest point. As you go to each string, your elbow is going to come up. So each string level, the elbow goes higher, and you're going to pretty much keep that same straight line. If you reach your arm over like this and you keep your elbow down, you're going to get this kind of shape. Same thing as if you do it the other way. So you want to make sure that elbow comes with the whole arm. And just remember, when you lift and you go from string to string, you're doing that with your elbow. You're not doing that with your shoulder. Your shoulder always, always stays down. So it's a lift like this. You just simply pivot from your shoulder. You lift from your elbow. Okay, now on to bowing. And this is something I would never go this fast, but I'm going to teach you some stuff that you need to know. First thing, we want to talk about how you hold the bow. With the cello, you want to do everything just as naturally as your body is going to allow you. So you're going to just take your right arm and you're going to just flop your hand forward and see how those fingers look. How do those fingers fall naturally from the wrist, and how much space is between each finger. This is more or less the same position you want to have as you place that hand onto the bow. Most people tend to have a death grip, so it's a much too tight of a hold on the bow, and that will not allow you to do more advancing techniques with the bow as you go on. So a nice, relaxed, loose hold on the bow is what you want. You're going to aim for these middle knuckles right here, and those middle knuckles are going to go on the very top of the stick here. So you're just going to imagine what that's like to push the bow down with those middle knuckles on the top of the stick. Your middle finger is going to go right over that silver or gold ring right here. That's where the middle finger goes. It can poke down over the bottom a little bit. And the rest of the fingers just naturally fall onto the stick. You want them an adhesive feeling with the fingers on the stick. You don't want them bent any like this. Just naturally fall on there and stick onto the frog. Your index finger is going to wrap around that grip tape like this. Your thumb is going to go right here where the end of the frog is and where the stick is. So right there is where your thumb goes on the other side. It doesn't go through this hole at all. It doesn't go down here. It goes right there on the edge of the stick. So once you have that, you want to make sure you support the stick with your left hand. You don't want to let go of it because your hand shape will change as you let go. So keep supporting it with your left hand, and then once you've got it in place, bring it up vertical so that you can feel it and get a sense of how that's going to work. So that's your right bow hand right here. And you can try a few things like stir the pot, the windshield wiper, some things like this so you can get comfortable holding that bow. Now when you place the bow on the string, to start with, there's going to be a place where you want to aim, and that's basically halfway between the end of the fingerboard and the bridge. So basically that halfway point is a good sounding point to start with. But for now, halfway between the end of the fingerboard and the bridge is where you want to place the bow. Now, when you place it, start with the middle and bring it down and touch the hair to the string, and halfway between that spot. And you want to have the stick slightly turned towards you because the whole idea is that we're pushing weight towards the bridge. You don't want to push the weight up this direction. You want to push weight towards the bridge. So that's why we have it angled this way. If you look at violinists, the stick is away from them because the bridge is here and they're pushing the weight towards the bridge this direction. Same for us. Push the weight towards the bridge. Stick is towards you, and then your hands are natural, relaxed, and you push it down on the string like this. And when you first start, you're just going to make a couple very simple sounds. Don't use too much bow right when you first start. And as you draw the bow, one thing you want to try to do the best you can is to stay more or less perpendicular. Have the stick of the bow perpendicular to your strings. So you want to be careful that you don't have this angle and that you don't have this angle. For the most part, you're going to stay mostly perpendicular to the string, parallel to the bridge. So this, and this. You want to think about those angles. That's going to give you the best sound. Once you start pulling the bow this way or this way, it's not going to be the best sound. You also want to watch your contact point. That's where the hair makes contact with the string so that your contact point stays there most of the time. You can be parallel, but if it's sliding and that contact point is moving, you're not going to get a good sound. So the contact point needs to stay the same, and you just stay perpendicular to the string. Now when you move the bow, the most common thing that you see with beginners is the shoulder wants to come up this way and move the bow all in one big piece as though you have a cast on. Just remember, you pivot from the shoulder. The movement is open from the shoulder and open from the elbow. So it's this. This is the motion that you're going to do as you draw the bow. It's not just one big piece. The way things work as far as ergonomics is that if you were to move your arm in one big piece like this, you would see that your contact point can't stay where it should. So as you draw it out, shoulder pivots, elbow extends. It's like a door hinge opening like this. And that's how you get the best sound. So this was a lot of information very quickly. If you are someone who likes to learn much slower, much more step by step, I have everything broken down very, very tiny, digestible steps on cellodiscovery.com, and it's the place where you can really learn how to play the cello with a very supportive community, lots of great interactive scores, simple exercises to practice, and help when you need it. So hope you will join us on cellodiscovery.com. If you like this video and want to see more, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel below, and I'll see you next time.